Sure. Thank you, Rakesh. And first of all, let me welcome Brigadier Malhotra and Ramesh Mirako, who are guests for today's event. And just before I introduce Ashok, who's a very dear friend of ours, I just thought I'll give you a little background because there's a little story I must tell you. This was 2008, and I think Omar Abdullah had just become the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. And Umar and I actually met him at a Business India Awards event in Bombay. And we're generally talking to him. And he said, look, I'm not going to ask you to come and set up anything in Jammu and Kashmir. It's not ready for it. But I really want you to come and motivate my people in Srinagar because they're all feeling kind of desperate, etc., etc. So we said, okay. And we said, how do we do it? He said, just send me in those days was before WhatsApp. He said, send me an SMS, I'll organize it for you. Now, you know, a lot of politicians say, send me an SMS, phone kijiye, kuch hota to hai nahi. But then we sent him an SMS and immediately he replied saying, I've made all arrangements and I would suggest you do not fly to Srinagar. You go to Jammu, take a car and drive through the Jawahar Tunnel and drive around for 3 days and then come to Srinagar. We were a little worried ki kya hone wala hai, because those were the days when it was not very safe. But we did it and we had a wonderful time. And which is when Ashok Kaul was there with us in that delegation. And with Ashok, we actually experienced Srinagar the way he had experienced it as growing up as a child, etc., etc. And Ashok is one of those people, today nowadays, everybody takes sides. I'm either pro something, anti something. But Ashok is one person who's totally balanced. I mean, he is obviously a Kashmiri Pandit, but he has a lot of friends and we now have very good friends on both sides of the community divide in Srinagar. I think through the years, we have now found him to be a thoroughly wonderful human being. He's a poet friend of mine. He was a filmmaker along with Uma, where they made the first Asian movie ever made in India, Bhagmati. I'm sure he'll talk about it. And of course, today, anything good that we want to do is always Ashok ji, aap bhi aayenge kya? So he's that kind of a person. And I won't even introduce him, and we will ask him to talk about his life. But Kashmiri, army man, joined Raj Kapoor and actually directed Teri, Ganga, Maili and a couple of other movies that he's very fond of talking about. And then Bhagmati, which was part of Zee TV's Zee Institute of Creative Arts. And of course, today he does a lot of work along with us and apart from that, and is a poet. So, I mean, I'm really delighted to present such an interesting and personality to the Rotary Club of Riverside. So Ashok ji, tell us a little bit about yourself. Maybe we can start from your early background, what made you join the army, and then we'll move into your film and entertainment side.
Well, let me tell you, firstly, I'm grateful to the Rotarians and Dr. It's a very, I think, pride moment for me to speak to Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, I know, don't have to tell what he is. His journey has been a great journey for many to follow. And we've learned a lot from him. So it's great honor for me to speak to him first. So thank you very much for that. Well, the army was always my passion, right from childhood. I'll give you a small little example. When, as a college student, I had gone for mountaineering course to Darjeeling, and my instructor was Tan Singh Norke. I was doing my course there, and every time I asked him, how difficult was it to climb Everest? He never replied. And one day, from a rock, when I was rappelling, and I just landed in front of him, he was sitting on a rock. I looked at him. I said, sir, how difficult was it to climb Everest? He said, decision to climb Everest was most difficult. The rest was just process. And that laid the foundations for me for everything. And that's how when I decided to join army, despite the fact in my college days, I had done a play on 65 war and Chetan Anand had come. And that play was awarded as one of the best plays on the, in interstate competition. And he, as a young man, I was a college student, he said, why don't you come to Bombay? I said, no, I'm joining army. So even those days, the kind of, anybody who could be told by great man like Chetananand to come to Bombay, any young man would have certainly come to Bombay first, then decided something else. But I thought, no, I had taken a decision. I had climbed down from that rock and landed, I had taken a decision, and I joined army. Well, that was my passion. Uniform has always been a passion, will remain my passion all my life. They say once a soldier, always a soldier. Rest is the journey, which I think will unfold while I talk to Dr. Natarajan.
So how many years in the army, Ashok? And
so I did exactly 15 and a half years. And well, there's a reason, emotional reason, which we'll talk how I, from army, from behind the gun to behind the camera, how it happened. We'll talk about it. So it was about 15 and a half years of service.
But tell us a little bit about your growing up, about Kashmir itself. What have been your experiences and what made you, how does your thinking about Kashmir evolve? Because I remember you took us to the house that was originally yours, which obviously was not there anymore in Srinagar. So just give us a little color to the Kashmir growing up.
Let me be very clear, sir. Kashmir is a unique blend of humanity and spirituality, cutting across all the barriers of caste, creed, and color, religion. I have seen Kashmir as a beautiful land of people with compassion and also a lot of spiritual aspects, which many people know about it. As a child, when I was studying in school there, and the kind of respect and love we had for each other, there was nothing called a religious divide that time. We were Kashmiris, and I'm being very clear on that. I have experienced that. Because Kashmir has been a great land of Sufi saints. Eventually, yes, of course, people explored various aspects for their personal reasons. That's a different thing. I don't want to touch on that. But let me be very clear. Kashmir has always been a land of great spirituality. And there wasn't, as a child, I never saw any sort of divide in terms of Kashmiri Pandits and Hindus. In fact, a lot of Kashmiri Pandits visited Muslim shrines. And if you know, I think I had the pleasure of taking you and Umaji to Kheer Bhavani. When we saw outside, you bought all the things for your puja from the Muslim shops. They sell it there. It's a unique thing. It still is there. We have not understood this. In fact, some people have exploited this, which I don't want to talk about. But if you see the kind of religious places which have been still been there and still are there could be here and there, minor point and all that. But मैं एक लाइन कहूंगा इसके बारे में आपसे, आपने इमोशनल कर दिया इस बारे में, तो जीवन है सीमित और हम सीमाओं में बन जाते हैं, और सीमित हो जाओ सब अपने हो जाते हैं. When you realize that kind of aspect in the journey of life, and that's what I realized in Kashmir's Shaivism and also Sufism, but unfortunately it died down over the years, and things became ugly, which we don't want to talk about. But still, I feel the roots of every Kashmiri or every Indian are in Kashmir. Kashmir is the foundation of all the human and spiritual aspects of life. Yes, sir. I don't want to be more.
Good. No, I'm glad you said that, because we still have a mutual promise to go back to Srinagar as soon as possible.
Of course, sir. Yes.
Start a big skills initiative there.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now tell us about the great transition. I see these lovely pictures of you with Raj Kapoor, everyone else. So, ye hua kaise? You are an army man, and suddenly one sees you transported to Kashmir and shooting for Teri, Ganga, Maili. So, what was the story?
I'll tell you, sir. It's a very interesting thing. I had the honor of fighting 71 war in Uri sector, and that was my land, Kashmir, part of land, and fighting there. The soldier is a great honor for me. A young captain I was at that time. And after the war, I started writing something which I thought, there were two things I wrote. One was about an incident that happened with my friend of mine, who became eventually a brigadier. His name is Brigadier Upinder. He used to be my colleague there. And his jeep fell into the river Jhelum. And And we evacuated him. But I wrote a story. Had he gone, because we were close to the border, has his jeep, and he traveled towards the in Pakistan, what would have happened? We were just on the border. So that was a story I wrote in one of their army magazines. And then I started writing a story. What gives a young man courage to give his life for the country? Now, that was something which I was writing after the war. And in 1975, 74, 75, between that, one day I was sitting in my headquarters, Rampur, which is the headquarters, brigade headquarters of the Uri sector. And it is the first brigade which landed in 1947 in Kashmir. That is the headquarters in Rampur, which is Uri. And there was no other officer there, and I was alone. And suddenly there was a knock on the door. And my orderly said that Raj Kapoor has come. Oh, I was shocked. Which Raj Kapoor? I said, all right. I was sending a situation report to my divisional headquarters. I said, wait, I'll ask you to. It was renouncing my ear, Raj Kapoor, Raj Kapoor. And after that, again, there was a knock. And I saw Mr. Raj Kapoor entering with one more gentleman. He says, may I come in, sir? I got up and received him, and I made him to sit. I said, well, sorry, I didn't know you were outside waiting for me. I'm sorry. वो बैठ गए और उसके बाद वो कहने लगे, भाई हम तो यहाँ वो जगह देखने आए हैं जहाँ से पाकिस्तान के साथ ब्रिज जाता है, which is now command post. Which is called now Amar Setu. That used to be command post those days. Well, normally we used to give permission to civilians to go up to that place, but since he was a celebrity, I realized that I should take the the permission from higher headquarters, and that should be more important. So I didn't want to tell him that I am not giving you the permission. I'm not capable of giving it. That ego, that respect of captain of the Indian Army. So I went to next office. I called up divisional headquarters. I rang up to ADC. I said, look, this is what Mr. Raj Kapoor has come and he wants to visit command post. What do I do? He said, wait, hang on. So he spoke to GOC. He said, all right, the Joker has come. I said, yes, sir. He said, all right, either take him or you send detail an officer to go along with him because we'll be passing through sensitive area. We don't want anything to, happen, and see that he's taken carefully. Now, I was the only officer, so I decided to take him myself. So me and Raj Saab with his one more person with him. So I drove from Rampur to that Uri, now that time Amar Setu. Now Amar Setu, that time is a command post. Now I drove a little faster than I normally used to. And I kept on holding onto that, stand that on the Jonga we have. And after we reached there and the command post, so we went to the vantage point where he stood and he could see the Pakistanis. Pakistanis came out. It's very close distance, the last post, command post, and the Pakistani post across. Everybody, Pakistani, started waving at him and all that. Hame picture dikho apni, wo Raj Kapoor, Raj Kapoor. Oh my God, it became a... Then he shouted, one day I'll show you a film from here, my film. Bobby was that time, almost been released. So there was a lot of connect. And after we got down, after he had good time at that place, so he again sat, he said, kya wapas bhi aap hi gaadi chalayenge? I said, he said, zara dheere chalaiye, mujhe jagah dekhne dijiye. So, and that I'm saying that what simplicity he had in his way of speaking things. And then we came back to our officers' mess. By then the other officers had come, and I said, can I offer you something? And he said, aap mujhe kya pilayenge? Is waqt to din hai, sham hoti to phir ye meri raat yahi ho jayegi. Ek bar bottle khul gayi to. So we had some tea together, and then an officer came. We had Major Handar there with us, and he said, he talked to him and he told him, Ashok is writing something which, a story about what gives life for a young man to give, what gives courage to a young man to give life for his country. He said, सुनाइए क्या सुना रहे हैं आप? So I gave him an outline. He took out some money. He says, "Ye kahani meri hai." I said, "Sir, I cannot give you like this. It has not been cleared from my army. I have to send it through process. How can I give you the story?" So I took out 1 rupee out of it. Those days, you had the 1 rupee, and I kept in a pocket. So I saw him off, and sure enough, after he left, we had the communication. Then he approached the government of India, he decided to make that film, Paramveer Chakra, announced it film, and also Prem Rang we started, and he announced Paramveer Chakra also. Anil Kapoor was to be introduced in the film industry with that film, and he wrote to the government of India for me to be as a consultant in the film. Now that was 74, 75. In fact, later on, he sent a film, and those days in the army, we had that moving cinema. We used to have the cinema in a truck, and we used to take it out. And we put a screen on that command post. And the Pakistanis also saw that film from both sides. In fact, his one thing came today. One day, in that day, Mr. Raj Kapoor had said that standing on that command post, one day this broken bridge will be perfect. Those days, that bridge used to be used by the UN observers, because those days they used to cross that bridge, and that eventually happened. Command post was converted into Amar Setu. So my journey started with him, and then of course I was called one day. He gave me a telegram. The government of India, those days the governments had changed, and he had met the defense minister. Jagjeevan Ram had become again defense minister with the Janta government. And he said, "Please come." So when he said, "We are meeting defense minister," I said, "Sir, I cannot meet. I'm still in the army. How can I meet him?" "So you go and meet him, sir. I'll wait for you." Then by the time he met him and he didn't get a very positive response, he came back. He said, "Bhai, film pata nahi ab Paramveer Chakra badegi ki nahi badegi aage." And I went back. And again, I got a one-day telegram. It was after a year. "Please come to Bombay if you can come on casual leave." So I came. That time, Sea Wolves was being shot in the Goa with Gregory Peck and all that. And myself and Raji, Randhir and myself, we went to Goa, and he talked to those guys that if I make a war film, what will be the cost of it? So we met that time, all the Gregory Peck and everybody. The kind of budget he gave, he said, "Bhai, ye to jo mera naam Joker hai, usse bhi bada budget hai." The film was shelved. And then he concentrated on finishing the Prem Granth, and I was back in the army. And whenever I used to come to Bombay, I used to meet him, and we used to discuss things and all that, leave and all that, and then go back to my battalion and wherever I was posted those days. In 1983, I was on leave, so he was in the Pune, and he said, "Please come. Come for a couple of days and stay with me." He said, "वो आपने जो एक छोटी सी कहानी बताई थी ब्रिगेडियर उपेंद्र की, मैंने उस पे सोचा है, मैं वो हिना जो जिसके लिए मैं आया था, उसी बेस पे हम हिना बनाएंगे." So then, even then the script was written. Khwaja Ahmad Abbas was, told to write the script. The original script was different than one subsequently Hina we made. और आज भी वो स्क्रिप्ट पढ़ी है जिसमें मेरा भी पंजे का हाथ है और ख्वाजा अहमद अब्बास ने जो लिखी थी. उस वक्त, that time he became very emotional. And at about 2:00 in the morning, he said, "You had a good journey in the army. You fought a war. You spent more than 15 years. Why don't you come? And I need you." And this is the exact sentence he said. I was doing fairly well in the army, sir. I had some good reports and had the honor of getting Chief of Staff's commendation also. And he made me emotional at 4:00 in the morning. He said, "Be part of me and RK Studios." He asked me 3 times. He says, "Now you have to tell me yes or no." I said, "Fine, sir, I will be." I said it at about 4:00 in the morning without knowing what I'm talking to him, what I said. But when I came back, I realized, oh my God, I have told him yes. I had not spoken to my family, my wife. Nobody had spoken. I went back, and then again he wrote to me, when. I then had an introspection in my mind. I said, I have committed something. Should I or should I not? My career in the army is doing well. I do not know what films are all about. I have nothing to do there. I refused Chetan Anandji that time. But that feeling in me that I have said yes, I couldn't overcome that. I couldn't overcome that. And I applied for premature retirement, rejected. I came happily and told him. So it is not, they've told me to reconsider. Those days it was not easy, to get premature retirements. And I came back, and I don't know after that what he did, whether he spoke to somebody. By then the ground was formed. I don't know what happened. After that, another message came that, reconsidering. And then I again sent my premature retirement. It was accepted. And I took my premature retirement, and that's where whole journey of Ram Teri Ganga Maili started. And I headed the RK studios, both at creative and at both production levels. And that's the Ram Teri Ganga Maili. Finished it, and it was not an easy thing with Raj Saab's not health.
But Ashok, you had no background at all in film.
No, sir.
किसी ने सिखाया आपको कि कैसे हुआ?
कुछ नहीं हुआ, sir. What happened, to be very honest, I said always one thing, and I always believed in, I'll give you two instances which I always feel that the cosmos is something, when you look up, you get everything. I'll give you two instances for it. In my life, sir, just before the war, we were in Uri sector. And with those heights, Baz Bater, a lot of officers are there. They would know that Sorab and Baz Bater, they're very important posts near, we had Pakistan, opposite Pakistani forces, Jandi Mali, Haji Pir, and all those kind of things. And one day, during just the war had just begun, one day in that bunker of mine, because villages were still there behind, my Johnny comes, said, there's somebody coming to wants to meet you, sir. That we had a very shrine of Baba Farid there, and a lot of spirituality in Uri sector, one of the places. So I said, all right, let him come in. So he came in. This is an exact real story, sir. So came in. He was one of those dervishes of those areas, and he says, "Khade ho jaiye." I got up and respected him. He told my Johnny, एक चाकू लेके आओ. My Johnny put his gun. What do you mean by चाकू लेके आओ? I said, go and get a चाकू. ले आया, उसने हाथ में लिया. उसने कहा कि उसको आप दूर कर दीजिए. I told my Johnny, please go, आप जाओ. अपनी पीठ मेरी तरफ कीजिए. मैंने पीठ कर दी. उन्हें चाकू उठाया, सर. चाकू उठाकर मेरे पीठ पे जैसे ही आया तो उल्टा कर दिया. कहता जाओ, तुम्हें कुछ नहीं होगा. And he walked off. And I realized after that, I tried to search that man. I couldn't find him anywhere. And I really got that kind of, during war, that strength, the spiritual strength that I got was something very, I cannot explain to you. Second, as a young army officer, I had the great honor of climbing Harmukh. I was doing mountain warfare course in Kashmir. Harmukh is a very unique, it's like Lord Shiva. There are two lakes there, Gangabal, and this time when we go, I'll take you to that place called Gangabal and Gansar. We may not be able to climb the Harmukh, but there are two beautiful lakes, Gangabal and Gangasar. And that time they decided that we will we'll go and climb this. It was never climbed before, and I think still Harmukh has not been climbed after that. That time, Brigadier Nugyal eventually became general, and Major Premchand, Colonel Premchand, the hero of Kanchenjunga, they were the instructors, and I was one of the students. And about 9 of us, we decided to climb that Harmukh. There's a temple called Narang Nag. Still, there are the structures there at near Kangan. And from there, we started climbing up. And when we were climbing, these Gujars came. He says, "Kahan ja rahe? Where are you going?" We said, "We climbing the Harmukh." He says, "Don't go. Sahab, हमारे जो पूर्वज थे, बड़े पुराने लोग थे. They said that 1933, one German expedition had come there. Nobody came back. This is the Lord Shiva's place." But we were in the uniform army. We started climbing. And when we were just about to climb the main peak, we were about to reach the peak, suddenly a huge snow blizzard came. And we would have been blown off. Major Premchand said, "Put your I-6 down on the ice and just lie down on the ice." Major Premchand is still, Colonel Premchand is still there, lives in Manali, very devout person. And we put our I-6. He got up, he emptied his water bottle and enchanted some mantras, Buddhist mantras. So within 5 minutes, the whole snow blizzard stopped. In fact, someday you should talk to Colonel Premchand. He's there now. It's a real story. Then we climbed the Harmukh. While we were coming back, since I was the youngest, there were 3 people put on the rope. So they said, "All right, you youngest guy, lieutenant, you go the first down." So we were climbing down, and then we had to traverse through the mountain, the snowbed, entire snow thing, and go back to the Ganga. And suddenly I stopped. And all the 3 ropes, rest of the 2 ropes, they started shouting in typical army language. I was getting all the bullshit that I could ever hear. "Come on, move," and all those kind. I can't repeat those words. I don't know why I stopped. And after exactly, say about 1 minute, just about 30 to 40 yards ahead of me, the entire huge snow avalanche came. And if I had not stopped, all my three ropes would have come in that. Everybody was quiet. After it subsided, we came down to Gangsar. There's a small little Shiv temple there. I'm sure it will be there still. We all had a dip in that ice cold water of Gangsar. It was absolutely ice cold. Had darshan of Shiva and came back. So what I personally feel is, I'm not being religious about it. What I'm trying to say is, in a journey of life, I realized there is something which within us we can discover. And once we discover, we also get the strength to achieve it. This is what I feel.
Amazing. Okay, in the interest of time, let me move to your next chapter. Where did ZTV come in and what happened? I don't even know the story, although of course Uma was CEO at that time. But what brought you to that juncture where you guys did a great job getting Russian animators? So uska thoda kahani bataiye. What is Bhagmati? How did you make it?
So it was a very unique story, I'll tell you. Yeah. After I got my first film, I made Paramveer got a national award. And after that, one day, I met Mr. Subhash Chandra. He said, "Why don't you be part of the ZTV?" I was, "All right, sir, I'll come." So I was told to head a place called where I will make films. And suddenly my film was invited by American Cancer Society in America for fundraising, where Hema Malini and me were invited. There I met John Canmaker. He invited me to TISS Film School. And there I talked here, said India makes so many, Bollywood makes so many films. Why so far one animation film has not been made? I said, I'll make one. I didn't know the spellings of animation, to be honest. I'll make one. Came back. And that time when I came back, I told this thing to Subhaji. He said, yes, why not? Subhaji is heading the Z education. And there is one at Hyderabad, there is Zika. There are some students where the Russians are also teaching them some kind of animation. Why not? So I met Dr. Ganesh. I said, this is what it is. So I went to Hyderabad and I realized the foundations there, the students, some students were learning and all those kind of things and all that. But it was not intended for making a feature film that time. So I would say that the journey began there, and And then the support I got from Dr. Ganesh was tremendous. And then I realized what kind of, film should it be? Meanwhile, we had to, come from Hyderabad. We established a place in Mumbai, and we set up a studio in SL World, where almost about 200-300 people could, be. While we were teaching also at the same time, we decided to make the film. I realized what kind of film should be made. Then I started writing. While in Hyderabad, I had visited the ruins of the Hyderabad great story, Golconda Fort. I realized the character of Bhagmati and Muhammad Quli Qutub Shah was great. I discovered the real Shiv temple, ruins of Shiv temple made by that. I did some research and I discussed with even Dr. Ganesh. I said, this is what I feel. And I started working on the script. When I started working on the script, then I started, why not to make live an animation? Now, the point is that time there were some, meanwhile, I had gone to meet the DreamWorks and also the Disney, and I realized that they were much ahead of us. Making a huge feature film animation. They said, India, oh my God, it's not, how can you make this kind of thing? But what happened, sir, with the kind of, support I got from people like Subhash Chandra and Dr. Ganesh, I decided, yes, we must do it. We must do it. And to be short, because time is not, that story can be endless. But it's a film which has got 7.5 lakh hand-drawn frames. And it is a blend of both live and animation, with Tabu playing their live. I had said a thought called that there is nothing called death, past and present runs parallel. In fact, when the film got released, it was seen by Ayatollah Hadavi of Iran. And I was invited to deliver a lecture on interfaith in Indonesia, Jakarta, on this subject. But perhaps even after that, the Avatar film came. Avatar was also a blend of live and animation. But Bhagmati is the first film where we have in the storytelling, we have the blend. Of course, earlier Walt Disney made those kind of films where the live and animation characters used to move around, but the blend of two stories in terms of live animation, Bhagmati is the first. After that is Avatar.
How did you convince a top film star at that time like Tabu to act in a completely experimental film?
Well, I'll tell you, when I met Tabu, I told her, you're going to make, this is what is going to happen. He looked at me, she said, all right, what do you mean? You're going to make me animated character? I said, no. Then I gave the story to her. So give me a day. And after a day, she called me up. She said, I have gone through the story of Bhagmati. I went into historic aspect. Oh my God, she's a great character. I will do. After Bhagmati, a lot of South Indian films have come up in the same kind of title, Bhagmati. And again, let me tell you, I like to share with you. That time, the Prime Minister, Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, was there when I was making. I wrote this thought to him and wrote a poem to him. And I'm going to tell you, I need your help for that. And I got a reply from Prime Minister. Still, I have a letter signed by Prime Minister. He said, I'll come and meet you one day and thank you for the poem. I wrote a poem for him. And he had liked. And because of that, he invited me on his birthday the next year. That was 2000. I gave that poem as a present to him. He said, this is the poem I wrote for him. On 25th of December, with your help, I'd like to unleash that poem again, sir. Now, even he liked the thought when I gave him, this is what the film is being made. After that, well, it was, I think, support, which I told you, the kind of, the kind of support I got from Subhaji and Umaji. And in fact, many a times, she inspired me, all right, you go and meet there, go do there. And that's how the films are made. And I am grateful for that. I'll remain grateful that we are the first people who made India's first live animation film. And secondly, sir, you're a scientist yourself. The black hole that the NASA has discovered now, about 6 or 8 months back, is the last shot of the film, which we have made. And we released in 2000. It took 8.5 years to make that film, training and making the film. So this was the journey, sir. I'm grateful to the people who were supported me on this.
No, that is amazing. And I mean, we need to have some time for questions. So, but before that, let me just ask you one final question from my side. You are always able to think beyond the obvious. And I just want to explain that to our audience by saying that I think it was 2008 and 2009. I think this was the time of a lot of economic crisis. Usi time pe we had decided in Zensar to open up 7 new countries. I mean, Japan, Australia, South Africa, etc. And everybody was saying, "Arey, abhi ye to time thodi hai. Now you should just conserve cost and not try and expand." And I remember talking to Ashok at that time. I think it was in Pune only, and we were doing a film for Zensar. So I said, "What should I do, Ashok?" And Ashok immediately, of course, he thinks in poetry. And I won't say this right, but maybe you can correct me. But he said, "Look, you should tell the winds of change कि हवा तू अपने रुख बदल ही ले, मगर मैंने अपनी दिशा चुन ली है." It means you be steadfast in what you think. And it's like, even today, and I think of it, it kind of inspired. So Ashok, let's end with your favorite poetry. And first of all, let's right. What was the actual line?
ये तो आपने जो line बोली है वही रहेगी actual, because आपके शब्दों में शक्ति है. You got the strength in your words, sir. I have known it, I have seen it. And the poem that I wrote to you, and yaad aaj maine, because you were speaking to me, I deliberately had kept the blessing of Lord Ganesha behind me. If you see, that is something I have. लेकिन मैं शब्द आखिरी आपके लिए बोलता हूँ, sir. एक line बोलता हूँ, which I think has inspired me, given me strength, and I think has the reflection of your thought. I like to narrate that. शिखर तक पहुंचने से पहले रोकती हैं बढ़ते कदमों को हवाएं. शिखर तक पहुंचने से पहले रोकती हैं बढ़ते कदमों को हवाएं. शिखर पर चूमती हैं उन्हीं कदमों को वही हवाएं.
क्या बात.
शिखर तक पहुंचने से पहले रोकती हैं बढ़ते कदमों को हवाएं. शिखर पर चूमती हैं उन्हीं कदमों को वही हवाएं. The winds that stop you while you are going on top, when you reach top, same winds kiss your feet.
Lovely.
वही शक्ति है, sir. And thank you very much, sir.
No, thank you. It was lovely as always talking to you. And I think I'll request Rakesh ji, one of these days when everything opens up, maybe we should do an evening session जहाँ आपकी poetry भी सुनेंगे, कहानियाँ भी और सुनेंगे. So that would be fantastic. And
sir, 25th December, I need your help. I want to unleash that poem again, sir.
जरूर करेंगे.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so let me throw it open for anybody to ask a question. Uma, would you like to ask something to your best friend?
Yeah, sure, certainly. Ashok ji, you spoke, it was quite a bit of a nostalgia getting you to speak about the making of Bhagmati itself. I know how many months, how many weeks, how many times you would have visited Hyderabad. And of course, thinking about casting and animation and all of that. One thing that comes to my mind is, it was a time when you required to make the movie, we had planned that the movie is going to have mainly animation, and then the number of animators who had the right skills, they were very difficult to come by. So we had a bunch of people whom we were already training in Hyderabad. Firstly, you had to motivate them to shift to Mumbai. Secondly, there were some senior Russian animators who decided to move back to Russia, or rather go back from India. So you had to take on the complete responsibility of training them and upskilling them and adding more people to the team, so that in a given budget, in a given time frame, we could achieve the goals that you had set for yourself. How did you accomplish all of this? Which is, to me, even when I think about it, it's such a complex task. Making live action and animation movie itself is something that was happening for the first time. And you had no background whatsoever in animation. And on top of that, you had to bring together people who had to be, who had to understand film and animation both simultaneously. How did you make this impossible really happen?
Well, Umaji, I'll tell you very frankly, I think your support for this was tremendous. If I had not had your initial support, you understood and you gave me full support on the journey, which I felt was not easy. But once we had decided, I think I recall when we did our first inauguration at Hyderabad, you were there. And we had created a set. And behind that, we had created the Muhammad Quli Qutub Shah and Bhagmati. And we inaugurated the film there, you were there. What you spoke to me at every time when I met you, ma'am, was, Ashok, you have decided, complete it now. And you gave me support at every level. I remember still, I cannot forget that with great difficulty, you got me a appointment with the Universal Studios, Walt Disney, with one of the seniors people. And that's how I flew down to USA and then I met them and told them the concept. It was not easy. You cannot achieve these kind of things by yourself if you don't have that kind of, you don't get that kind of back, it's that inspiration, the strength I had. So I'm thankful for you. It's all right to say many things that I did this. No, it's what I felt, that when you are there, when you do something which is beyond your own capabilities. I had no idea, very rightly you said, I had no idea what animation was all about. But then I realized the support I had, inspiration I had, and शिखर तक पहुंचने से पहले रोकती हैं बढ़ते कदमों को हवाएं. तो आपने जो मुझे सपोर्ट दिया, आपने जो मुझे इंस्पिरेशन दी है, ये उसी का असर है कि आज उस वक्त हमने भागमती बनाई और भागमती बनाने के बाद उसको रिलीज किया. इट इज बनाने को बहुत बना लेते हैं, लेकिन उसके बाद फिल्म रिलीज भी होनी चाहिए. रिलीज किया. And let me tell you one thing. Today, I was visiting the other day. I was invited to Boston. At Boston, में किसी ने भागमती देखी थी, and they said that please give us the thought. What is the thought behind of it? In fact, I mentioned your name there. So ये चीजें कहने के लिए बड़ी आसान होती हैं. It's very easy to say, but if you don't have the kind of support, if you don't have kind of inspiration, such impossible things are not possible. So I'm grateful to you for that.
Only. So any other questions? Umeshji, Vikram, all are Zelam.
Yeah, I have got a question.
Yes, Umesh.
I want Ashokji to explain something more about the personality of Raj Kapoor during his interaction with him.
Yes, I don't think that kind of reflection when anybody will give you. Let me tell you very frankly, sir. Mr. Raj Kapoor was a child. He always lived like a child, an innocent child. People think he was a person who is to show around, a showman of the filmmaker. He had a child inside him. He thought like a child, but he had tremendous creative, acumen that you cannot even think. He had tremendous, the love for humanity was great in him. And I realized the definition of love for him was very different. He defined love in many dimensions. And that's a great reflection in his film. I would say he was a child at heart, but a great filmmaker with the films that you have seen. And his journey, I don't have to say about his journey, but imagine making a film called Ram Teri Ganga Maili, and we were shooting in Uttarakhand, Gangotri, where those days the bridges were not there. He said, no, Ganga jahan se nikalti hai, mujhe wahan jana hai. Then we took him on. Imagine at that age, he said, no, मैं राम तेरी गंगा मैली बना, बाकी ठीक है हम लोग सब कर रहे थे जो भी करना था, but we carried him on a dandi. That is the strength, sir. That is what it is.
May I say something? I don't have question,
Azelam.
but yeah, Narayan Murthy once said, God is always there to those who are ready. So I think this is takeaway for me from your today's interview. What Uma said, you have created it, now finish it. And God always has the ready minds. You were ready, and that's what happened. It was interesting to listen to you. Thank you so much.
So true. So Ramesh, as a fellow Kashmiri, any suggestion, any comments?
So Ashok, you are obviously a lot more hopeful about Kashmir in the near term than perhaps I am. Would you explain what's your basis of really, why do you think Kashmir problem will get solved sometime in the near future, or have you changed your mind now?
I will never change my mind, sir. Kashmir is our roots and will remain the roots always and every time. We have to think positively about Kashmir. Kashmir की जो आप हमारी जो कश्मीर की परिभाषा है, what we think about Kashmir in terms of the religious angle should go beyond.
So,
you know, when you visit there, even today when I visit there, the kind of love I get from people of Kashmir is unimaginable. Because I go with heart as a Kashmiri. I don't go with that. I still have a house in Kashmir, sir. I have not given it up. I had taken Ganesh Natarajan, had shown him. Why would I? If you have strength within you, that you feel this is land of my forefathers, this is where I have evolved from. Why should I say that I cannot go there? Why should
Ashok, I'm not talking personally. I kind of agree with you in terms of the traditions of Sufism and how Kashmir was perhaps the place, one of the few places where, you know, Hindus and Muslims could live together quite peacefully. But talk about in the current context of current geopolitics. In the current context of geopolitics, do we see, for example, the 500,000 army that we have in Kashmir, or army and other forces, reducing in number or even withdrawing altogether from the valley when we don't need them there?
Sir, I'll give you a small little answer to it. There's some army officer also on the panel. I'm sure he will agree with me. While I was fighting 71 war in J&K, Uri sector, the kind of support we got from the locals was immense. They were all Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot forget that. You know, the kind of support we got from the locals there. In fact, at some time, I'll narrate you a small story, which not today, there's not a time, of a little child there. Eventually, what he became. The fact is that the moment we look at from the religious angle, we go wrong. We have to forget past. In every journey of life, there are certain events which happen, which are painful. But when you look at the future, you have to think positively. If we are in love with the land, if we are in love with Kashmir, we are Kashmiris, then we will get the love there. And if we think that global ये होगा, global वो होगा, तो global में घूम जाएंगे हम, कभी नहीं आ पाएंगे, sir. We have to take that thing that this Kashmir is ours, and we are Kashmiris, not Pandits, not Muslims. We are Kashmiris. When we have that kind of thing, सब ठीक हो जाएगा.
Okay, बाकी रमेश मिराकुल के घर में over drinks.
Okay.
I'll give you the last question.
I think Rashmi Bhai also has a question.
Okay, sure.
Go ahead, Vikram. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. Ashok, I also lived in Kashmir, and you know, we've all seen the way Kashmir has. It's a transformation, and it's not a positive one. What's happened over the period, and I wanted to understand from you as a filmmaker, did you ever feel like making a film, about the Kashmiri people and their aspirations and their disappointments, because there are lots of those these days? And did you ever feel intimidated, or did you ever feel that it will not get past the censors, or it will not, an honest movie about a political or a social situation that is not accepted by the majority of people, or is unacceptable to the majority of people, do you think that you would face any kind of restriction in your freedom of expression?
Sir, I like to tell you about my passion of films, why I make films. In my journey of both in army and films, I realized one thing. What you show, what you speak is most important. In my journey of life, I would never ever show negativity in my films. If you see my Paramveer Chakra is a war film, and my culmination of film is on the positive note. And you know, when you can you hear me, sir? Am I heard?
Yeah, go ahead.
You see, I believe in, if I have to show in my films, I like to, there's a script of mine which I wanted to write, which is called Zafran. Called Zafran. In that, I have written, that film is exactly what you say, but I have shown positivity in that. I believe in any human, whenever you show a group of people something, you should avoid negativity, show positivity. You know, the positivity is the strength of future. Negativity does not let you go into the future. You remain in present, and you in that present, then you cannot come out from that. When you show the positivity, the people, they will forget the present and they'll forget the past. Then if you go to past, if you start making the films in the past, you see all those tribes and all that coming and killings and all that kind of things. It reminds us something which is not positive. Let's go to future. Future of humanity is something very beautiful. And that's what I believe as a filmmaker. I want to take humans into future of beautiful, life of a life which we should. जीवन है सीमित और सीमाओं में बन जाते हैं. असीमित हो जाओ, सब अपने हो जाते हैं. Let's not. Time is defined. हमें जो है ना वीजा प्लेनेट अर्थ ने बहुत लिमिटेड दिया है. तो उस लिमिटेड वीजा को हम वेस्ट नहीं करेंगे, एंजॉय करेंगे, अच्छा करेंगे और अच्छा सोचेंगे, एंड we'll get everything beautiful, sir.
Rashmi ji, आपका question.
In fact, actually, I don't have any question. I have a couple of suggestions. One suggestion is, Rakesh, please seriously think to arrange a tour of Kashmir with Mr. Ashok ji.
Yes.
And having all the infrastructure help from our own Jhelum.
Yes.
So let's have a tour, all paid tour, not of our club fellowship, of about 8 to 10 days of Kashmir. Please arrange it. I would love to join.